Society spoke of only one name that year, Lady Alara Voss. 22 years old, with dark lustrous hair that stayed perfectly in place even in the wind, and eyes that made a person pause for a second when caught in them. Her bearing was not that of a queen, but the kind before whom queens themselves might grow reserved. They had called her the Diamond. No one knew who had started the name, but once spoken, it clung, because it was true. When Alara entered a room, the light changed. It truly changed. People noticed. And that season, everyone wanted her. No one knew the exact number of proposals, though gossip refused to count below 12. Lords, barons, a viscount, 2 wealthy merchants, all had knocked on her stepfather Lord Voss's door. And Lord Voss had turned them all away, because he was waiting for the highest offer. The Duke of Stirling made his offer in January. The figure was never disclosed, such things never were, but whispers spread, and the number within those whispers was unthinkably large. London was astonished, then it understood, then it said, of course, because in that city, it was considered only natural that the Duke of Stirling obtained whatever he desired. Adrian Ashford, Duke of Stirling. 34 years old, one of the largest landowners in England. Was he handsome? The word was too small. More precisely, he was dangerous, the kind of beauty that made people instinctively take a step back while looking at him. And he was cold. Ice cold. The 2 coldest people in London are getting married, people had joked, never aloud, but everyone had thought it. The Diamond and the Ice Duke. The wedding was on March 15th, and the church was full, of course it was. Everyone had come. No one could afford not to. When Alara entered in her wedding dress, the room held its breath. She was beautiful, incredibly beautiful. White lace, a long train, small flowers in her hair. Her steps were measured, her posture flawless, and her smile was perfect, complete, and entirely empty. But no one had seen it, because no one had truly looked. Adrian had. When Alara reached him, Adrian turned to her with that familiar evaluating gaze, and in that gaze, he caught something. Those eyes, the ones that altered the light of drawing rooms, that froze people mid-thought, were something else now. Empty. A deep, absolute nothingness. Adrian had thought, pride. What else could it be? The ceremony ended. The celebration ended. And in the largest bedroom of Stirling Manor, Alara stood at the window, her back to the door, her wedding gown still on her, hands clasped in front of her, staring out into London's night fog, into nowhere. When Adrian entered, she did not turn. Lady Stirling. No reply. He waited 1 second, 2. Alara. Still nothing. He walked across the room and came to stand beside her. They stood side by side, Alara still looking outward, her face visible in perfect profile, her gaze steady. There was nothing on it, no fear, no excitement, no curiosity. Nothing. Something in Adrian tightened. Did you notice that I am here? He asked. Her gaze did not shift. Adrian turned away, walked to the table, then turned back. I am looking at you, he said. His voice was even, but there was something beneath it, something controlled, restrained. I expect you to answer. Alara turned her head and looked at him. And when she did, Adrian stopped, because those eyes did not see him. They looked, yes, but they did not see. As if they were looking past him, as if Adrian was not there, or was, but made no difference. I am well, Alara said. Her voice emerged flat, low, colorless. Adrian paused for a second. You are well? Is that all you have to say? No answer. It is our wedding day. I am attempting to speak with my wife. Silence. Elara. My lord. Look at me. She did, still the same, still that void. Adrian turned away and began to pace. Something was boiling inside him, controlled and suppressed, but present. What had he paid for this woman? That figure, that absurd figure. London's most desired woman, the diamond, on every tongue. And now she stood before him, cold as ice. I acquired a wife, Adrian said, and for the first time his voice broke through, control cracking just slightly. Not a statue. Elara did not move. The sentence struck something, but Adrian could not see where it landed, because nothing changed on her face, only her eyes closed, for just a moment. 1 second, almost imperceptible. Then they opened again, and the same emptiness returned. Adrian went to the window and looked out at London's night fog, the distant lights, the carriages. Go to your room, he said, his voice flat again, control restored. A room has been prepared for you. Adjacent. Elara moved for the first time, walking to the door. She paused there. Adrian did not turn, still looking outside. My lord. What? A long silence. Thank you, Elara said, her voice so low Adrian almost did not hear it. The door closed. Adrian remained at the window for a long time. That boiling thing inside him slowly began to change into something else. The anger remained, but beneath it, there was something small, unsettling, persistent. Those closing eyes. 1 second, almost invisible. But Adrian had seen them, and the image did not leave. That night he slept, but when he opened his eyes in the morning, those closing eyes were still there, in a corner of his mind, small and insistent. Why had she closed them? Pride did not make one close their eyes. Then what? Adrian did not know, but he wanted to ask. And the Duke of Stirling, when he wanted an answer, always found it. That night Adrian had gone to bed late, buried in documents as always, property transfers, tax ledgers, reports from the northern estates. His nights were like this. He worked because working meant not thinking, and Adrian did not enjoy uncontrolled thinking. When something lingered in his mind, unanswered, unresolved, he disliked it. Those closing eyes had circled in his head past midnight before he finally extinguished the candle and slept. He did not know the hour when a sound woke him, from the other side of the wall, the adjoining room, Elara's room. Short, restrained, almost inaudible. Adrian opened his eyes and listened. It came again, the same sound, not quite a sob, not quite a groan, more like something suppressed, the sound of someone trying to hold something in. He rose, went to the door, and knocked. No answer. He opened it. The room was dark, with moonlight entering through a single window, pale, blue, trembling. Elara was in bed, sleeping, or pretending to. Adrian could not be sure, but the sound had stopped. He turned to leave, and in that turn, the moonlight struck. Elara's shoulder was exposed. Her nightdress had slipped, revealing her right shoulder, the base of her neck, the upper part of her back. And there, Adrian froze. A mark. The mark was not uniform, and that was the most striking thing. Burn marks were often irregular, but they had a center, a direction. This mark came from multiple points. It began at the shoulder, wide, uneven, old. Its color had faded with time, but it had not disappeared. It never would. And beside it were other marks, smaller, of a different kind. Not calluses exactly, but more like the result of friction, of carrying weight, of repeating the same motion countless times. Such marks did not belong on the skin of a lady. Never. Adrian stood in the middle of the room. Something was happening inside him, irregular, uncontrolled, difficult to name. Anger, in part. Surprise, yes. But more than anything, that mark began to turn in his mind, its pattern, its placement, its nature. Hard labor. How could London's most desired woman, the diamond, bear the marks of labor? He left. Closed the door quietly, returned to his own room, and sat down. That night, he did not sleep at all. In the morning, Alara came to breakfast, as always, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, perfectly empty-eyed. She sat and reached for her coffee. Adrian sat across from her, watching. Alara felt that gaze but did not respond. She drank her coffee and touched nothing else. Last night, Adrian said. Alara stopped, the cup suspended in the air. I heard a sound. I trust you are well. The cup returned to the table. I am well. Adrian waited. Alara said nothing more. Breakfast ended. Alara rose and walked toward the door. Adrian watched her from behind, that shoulder, covered, concealed, perfectly dressed. He knew now what lay beneath it. At 10, Adrian mounted his horse. He did not tell his servant where he was going, said only he needed air, that was sufficient. The Duke of Stirling did not explain his movements. But he was going to Voss Manor. The ride took 40 minutes, and in those 40 minutes Adrian thought systematically, coldly, as he always did. What did he know? A scar on the shoulder, from labor, on the body of a supposed lady. What did he not know? Everything. What did he need to learn? How it had happened, and more importantly, who had done it. When Voss Manor came into view, Adrian slowed his horse. It was a large estate, well kept from the outside, but Adrian knew the insides of well-kept exteriors. They were often deceptive. He did not enter through the main gate. He circled the property and went to the servants' entrance. He dismounted, tied his horse, and instead of going to the door, walked to the kitchen window. The inside was visible. The kitchen was large, fitting for a manor of that scale, and servants were working, normal, expected. But in the corner there was something, an old, large cast-iron cauldron, black and heavy, standing on its own legs, the kind found in industrial kitchens, great houses, soup kitchens. Heavy on its own. Very heavy. Adrian stepped away from the window, went to the servant's door, and knocked. An old man opened it, startled to see the Duke. "My lord, I wish to see Lord Voss," Adrian said. Now. He met Lord Voss in the receiving room. The man arrived smiling, rubbing his hands together, wearing that familiar expression reserved for wealthy guests. "Duke of Stirling, what a surprise." "Is there something, Alara?" Adrian said. Voss stopped. What did she do in this house? Something passed across Voss's face, quickly, very quickly. Then the smile returned. "What do you mean?" "My daughter was raised here, of course. What did she do?" Adrian repeated. His voice was flat, but beneath it there was something cold, sharp, dangerous. Voss's smile tightened slightly. "She lived as a young lady would." "Lessons, music, society, did she work in the kitchen?" Silence. Voss's smile froze. "My lord, did she clean the stables?" "This is absurd, did she carry heavy cauldrons?" Voss's face changed. The smile was gone, completely, and what remained beneath it was visible now, calculation, cold and immediate. "What does he know? How much does he know?" "Duke of Stirling," Voss said, his voice no longer that of a host but careful, defensive. "Alara was very well. There is a mark on her shoulder," Adrian said. The room froze. Voss said nothing. Adrian waited a long time. And Voss did not answer, because he could not. To answer would be to admit, and Voss was not the kind of man who admitted. But he could not deny it either, because there was something in Adrian's eyes. He knows. "Good day, Lord Voss," Adrian said. He turned, walked to the door, but stopped at the threshold. He did not turn back. "This conversation is not over." 4 words. Then he left. He mounted his horse and set off. During that 40-minute ride back, that boiling thing inside Adrian changed. The anger was still there, but it was different now. Before, it had been directed at Alara, at that cold, empty-eyed stillness, that feeling of having purchased a statue. This anger was directed at Voss. And this kind of anger Adrian knew very well. Cold. Long patient. The most dangerous kind. When he returned to the manor, Alara was in the library. Adrian saw her from the doorway, sitting in a chair, a book in her lap, but not reading. Simply sitting, with those empty eyes. He did not enter. He stood at the door and watched. And this time, he looked at those eyes differently. He did not see pride. He saw exhaustion, deep, accumulated, bone-deep exhaustion. Alara lifted her head, feeling his gaze, and looked at him. They remained like that for a second. And Adrian did not step inside. He turned, went to his study, sat at his desk, took paper and pen, and began to write, notes, names, dates. Voss. Debts. Alara. The mark. Everything was leading somewhere, and Adrian was determined to find where. Now I need to tell you about Alara. I truly do. Because until now you have only seen this, a cold woman, empty eyes, someone who does not speak, does not react, exists as if she were not there. But Alara was not this. She had never been this. She had only learned to become it. At 8 years old, Alara Voss knew one thing: when her mother died, everything changed. Her mother had died of illness in the middle of winter, quickly, mercilessly. Alara had woken up, gone to her mother's room, and she was gone. Simply gone. That day, Alara cried, she cried a great deal. And her stepfather, Lord Voss, came into her room. "Stop crying," he said. His voice was flat, neither gentle nor harsh, just flat. "It is useless." Alara stopped crying, because an 8-year-old child obeys what adults tell her. And from that day on, she did not cry again. The first year was not bad, not overtly bad. Alara ate, slept, had lessons. Voss paid little attention to her. He was busy, had affairs, came home late from gambling nights. Alara learned to be invisible, because being invisible was safe. The second year, the debts began. Alara understood this. She was 10, but she understood. The servants began to disappear, first the gardener, then one of the cooks, then 2 rooms were closed. For winter, Voss had said, but summer came and they were never reopened. And one evening, Voss called her. "Starting tomorrow, you will help in the kitchen." Alara paused. "My lord? There are fewer servants." "You will help." Alara was 10 years old. She said, "Very well." Kitchen work was heavy. Alara was small, her hands small, her back small, too small to carry most things. But she carried them, because there was no alternative. She woke early, lit the stoves, carried water, washed dishes, slept late. And during the day, Voss took her to balls. Dressed her, arranged her hair, said, "Smile." And Alara smiled, because she had to. Years passed. Alara grew. And as she grew, Voss's plan became clear. The girl was beautiful, very beautiful, and Voss had seen it with calculation, with cold precision, like a merchant assessing goods. "You," he had said one day, "are worth a great deal." Ilara was 16. She said nothing. The system was simple. By day, Ilara worked, kitchen, stables, heavy labor. By evening, Ilara shone, dress, hair, smile, balls, gatherings, introductions. And that smile, that perfect, complete, utterly empty smile, Ilara built in those years. In front of a mirror, days and weeks, until her face could produce it on its own. It did not come from within. But from the outside, no one could tell. And then there was the scar. The scar on her shoulder. This must be told. Ilara was 17. It was the middle of winter, one of Yorkshire's harshest, frozen pipes, snow, everything made difficult. That day, 2 kitchen servants were ill. Ilara was alone. And that great cast-iron cauldron, the one that had to be lifted from the fire and filled with boiling water for the evening meal, had to be moved. Ilara tried. She grasped it with both hands and lifted, or tried to. The cauldron shifted. But her hands were frozen. She had worked in the cold all day, her fingers numb, and she could not hold properly. The cauldron slipped. It was a second, only a second. It tipped, not fully, but enough. And the boiling water spilled. Ilara did not step back. She had no time. It struck her shoulder, her neck, the upper part of her back. And that pain, there is no word for that pain. She did not fall. That was the most astonishing thing. Later, she did not fall. She dropped to her knees, yes. She did not cry, she had stopped crying long before. She simply sat there on the cold stone floor of the kitchen, soaked and burning. And after some time, she stood. She set the cauldron upright, filled it again, and placed it back on the fire. Dinner had to be ready on time. That evening, Voss did not ask. Ilara hit her shoulder, changed her clothes, sat at the table, and smiled, that perfect, complete smile. Voss did not even look. The scar did not fade. It never would. But Ilara learned something, she could hide it. She could hide everything, the pain, the exhaustion, everything behind those empty eyes. She would hide it, and no one would see. Years passed. Ilara grew. And Voss's plan matured. The name Diamond emerged around that time. Ilara never knew who began it, perhaps Voss, perhaps chance, but it spread and it stayed. The proposals increased, each one coming to Voss's table, each one evaluated for money, title, connections. Ilara did not ask when, or where, or with whom. Because asking would not change anything. When the Duke of Stirling's offer came, Voss did not go to the kitchen that night. He went straight to his study and locked the door. The next morning, he came to Ilara. "The Duke of Stirling," he said. "I have accepted." Ilara was at the breakfast table, the bread in her hand stilling. "When?" she asked. "March." Ilara nodded. "Very well," she said. Very well, 2 words that carried within them something no one could see. It was not resistance, not quite submission either. It was something closer to an ending, the arrival of something long expected, long inevitable. As she prepared for the wedding, Ilara looked at herself in the mirror. That perfect bride, that perfect smile. And for a moment, just a moment, she let the smile fall. She looked at the face in the mirror. Who was there? She did not know, because she no longer recognized that face. Without the smile, she did not remember who she was. And on that first night at Stirling Manor, the Duke had said, "Not a statue." And something inside Alara had moved, small, dangerous, unexpected, because that sentence, for the first time, meant that someone had seen her. He had misread it, of course, he had seen pride. But still, he had seen. And Alara was so unused to being seen that she closed her eyes. For a second, only a second. Because in that moment she might have cried. And to keep herself from crying, she closed them. Adrian had not gone to Alara that morning. He waited one day, then 2, 3 days had passed since his return from Voss, and Adrian remained in the manor, attended to his affairs, saw Alara, but did not speak to her. He observed. What he saw was this: Alara rose early, before anyone else. Whenever she went downstairs, she was always doing something, straightening a chair, adjusting a curtain, small unnecessary things no one had asked for. She felt compelled to work. She did not know how to be still. At meals, Alara sat at the table, looked at her plate, and ate, but how? Quickly, too quickly, as if someone might take it away. As if she believed the food was not hers to have. And most of all, he saw this: Alara never entered a room on her own. She stopped at the doorway and waited, that small pause before stepping in, every time, in every room. She was waiting for permission. No one had told her to do so. But she did it, because she had learned over years that one waits before entering. On the evening of the 3rd day, Adrian made a decision. The 4th morning, Alara was in the library, not sent there by Adrian, she had gone of her own accord. She paused at the doorway, that familiar hesitation, then entered. Adrian saw this from the corridor and watched. Alara walked in, looked at the shelves, took a book carefully with both hands as though it might break, and walked to a chair. She did not sit immediately. She looked at the chair, as if asking, "May I sit?" though no one was there to ask. Then she sat. Adrian entered. Alara lifted her head, that familiar reflex: straighten, prepare, become ready. "Sit," Adrian said. She was already seated, but she understood: do not rise, you are not required to prepare yourself. She remained. Adrian walked to the shelves. The library was vast, the Sterling family's collection over centuries, but it was disordered, not visibly so, but Adrian knew. Untouched shelves, misplaced volumes, no catalogue. He touched a shelf. This library has not been organized in 10 years. Alara waited. Would you do it? Alara stilled. She did not ask why, did not ask how. She simply looked with that cautious, assessing gaze. The library? She asked. Yes. How? Adrian turned. However you wish. Silence. By subject? By author? By year? He took a book from the shelf and extended it toward her. You decide. Alara took the book. She looked at its cover, its spine, then at the shelf, then around the room. When must it be finished? She asked. It must not, Adrian said. Alara looked up. My lord? There is no time. No pressure. Adrian walked to the small desk in the corner and sat, opening his papers. Do it when you wish. Do not do it when you do not wish to. Alara held the book for a long time. Do it when you wish. No one had ever said that to her. Voss had not. He had said it will be done today, it will be ready tomorrow, why is it not finished? Desire, choice, these had not existed in Alara's life. My lord, Alara said. Adrian looked up from his papers. Why? She asked. Why should I do this? Adrian paused for a moment. Because you do not yet know what to do in this house. And standing in emptiness, he stopped. Is heavy. Elara held that sentence. Standing in emptiness is heavy. She knew it very well. But no one had ever said it aloud before. No one had ever seen it. That day, Elara remained in the library for a long time. She examined the shelves, took out books, replaced them, and considered, subject, author, year? And somewhere in that deliberation, she decided. By subject, with subcategories, and a color system for each section. She built the system in her mind. And that system came from her, no one had dictated it, no one had instructed it. It felt like it belonged to her. The second day, she returned. Adrian was at his desk, occupied with his work. Elara at the shelves. They did not speak. But the silence was different this time, not oppressive, not waiting. Simply two people in the same room, each engaged in their own work. On the third day, something happened. Elara was reaching for a higher shelf with no ladder in that corner. She rose onto her toes, reached, and slipped. She did not fall, she caught herself, but there was a sound. Adrian lifted his head. Elara straightened quickly, reflexively. I am sorry, she said, automatic, thoughtless. Adrian looked at her. Why are you apologizing? Elara paused. Did you fall? No. Were you harmed? No. Then? Elara could not answer. Because she did not know why she had apologized. It was reflex, years learned, embedded in bone. Something happens, anything, apologize. You made a sound, apologize. You took time, apologize. You existed, apologize. Adrian stood, went to a cabinet in the corner, took out a small ladder, brought it to her, set it down, said nothing, and returned to his desk. Elara looked at the ladder for a long time. Then she took it, set it up, climbed, retrieved the book, and climbed down. And within her, that small, insistent, unnamed thing grew. On the fifth day, Elara spoke, for the first time on her own, unprompted, not to begin conversation, simply spoke. This book, she said, holding a thick, old, dark-bound volume from the shelf. Is it history? Adrian looked. Philosophy, he said. But the title sounds like history. Adrian paused, then stood and came closer, taking the book. Hume, he said. 1748, it does not say history, but it uses historical examples. Elara looked, not at the book, but at Adrian. Are you asking if I have read it? Adrian said. No, Elara replied, and paused. It is evident that you have. Adrian looked at her for a second, and something small passed across his face, not surprise, something softer. He extended the book. If you wish, take it. Elara did. That day, as she left the library, Adrian spoke. Elara. She stopped. His voice was even, but beneath it was something restrained, controlled, truth. In this house, Adrian said, no one may give you orders. Elara waited. Not the servants. Not the guests. He paused. Not even I. The room fell silent. Elara did not turn. She was looking at the door. But her shoulders, those tense, lifted, always ready shoulders, lowered. By a fraction, just a fraction. But they lowered. Why are you telling me this? Elara asked, her voice very low. Adrian did not answer immediately. A long silence. Because, he said at last, you did not know it. Elara remained at the door for a moment. And then she turned, for the first time, truly turned, not with those empty eyes but with something else, something difficult to name. Not light, not fire, something smaller. But it was there. In her eyes, there was something. Adrian saw it. And within him, that cold, controlled man who calculated everything, stopped. Because those eyes had been empty for months, nothing within them, cold and deep and untouched. And now there was something, small, fragile, almost invisible. But present. Elara turned and left. Adrian remained in the library. He did not return to his desk, did not return to his papers. He simply stood. And those eyes, that moment, did not leave his mind. Days passed. The library slowly took shape, Elara's system, a little more each day, one shelf at a time. And each day something small happened, a sentence, I finished this shelf, a question, should this author not belong in another section? Or simply that pause at the doorway, growing shorter. Still there, but diminishing. One afternoon, Elara sat in the library reading Hume, truly reading, turning pages, occasionally going back. Adrian entered. Elara lifted her head, and she did not smile. Not that perfect, complete, empty smile. She simply looked, calm, direct, real. Adrian noticed. And within him, that thing grew. That evening at dinner, Elara spoke on her own. There is something I did not understand in Hume, she said. The part on causality. Adrian looked at her, and in that look there was no surprise, but there was something. I will explain, he said. And he did. Elara listened, truly listened, asked questions, and at one point she objected. That does not make sense, she said. Adrian paused. Why does it not make sense? Elara explained. Adrian watched her for a second. You are right, he said. Elara stilled. My lord? You are correct on that point. Hume is weak there. Elara's eyes opened fully. The emptiness gave way to something else, not merely surprise, something deeper. To be seen. For her thought to be seen. That night, Elara stood before her mirror and tried to form that perfect smile, from habit, from reflex. It did not come. Because something was there now, something different, less empty. Fear? A little. Hope? Perhaps. Both at once? She did not know. But she knew this house was not Voss's house. And this man was not Voss. And that difference was everything. Voss's arrival was not unexpected. Adrian had been waiting. Because since the day he returned from Voss's manor, Adrian had done something, quietly, methodically, with patience. He had prepared. Let me put it this way. Adrian Ashford, Duke of Stirling, had done many things in his life. He had acquired land, won lawsuits, cornered his enemies quietly, without public spectacle, at precisely the right moment. How? He waited. He did not rush. Anger did not guide him, it existed within him, yes, but only as fuel. Control always remained his. And for Voss, the right moment was when Voss came to his door himself. That morning, the servant had come. Lord Voss, my lord. He requests an audience. Adrian did not put down his coffee. Show him in. Then he rose, but not toward his study. He went to the dining room, and there he requested two things. The first, Elara. The servant went to her in the library, where she was always to be found now, every morning. She closed her book and stood. That familiar question, she did not ask why. Because she had learned something in these weeks, there was always something behind Adrian's requests. He did not explain immediately. But there was always a reason. She went. When she entered the dining room, Adrian was standing. "Sit," he said, his voice even. Elara sat. "Your stepfather is coming." Elara stilled. Inside her rose something old, something learned over years and embedded in bone, fear. But this time there was something else beneath it. Adrian was here. "What will he want?" she asked, keeping her voice even as she had learned to do long ago. "Money," Adrian said. "He is in debt. He is sinking." Elara was not surprised, she had known, sensed it. There was no escaping gambling debts. "Will you give it?" Adrian looked at her. "No," he said. He did not continue immediately. He walked to the table, turned a chair, placing it across from her, not beside, but still at the same table, and sat. "I will ask you something," he said. "You are not obliged to answer." Elara waited. "That scar. That night with the cauldron. Did no one help you?" Elara's hands remained on the table, still. A long silence. "There was no one," she said at last. "Where was Voss?" "At his club." "The servants?" "Two were ill. The others had been dismissed." "Dismissed?" "There was no money. They could not be paid." Adrian's jaw tightened. Elara saw it, that small movement, that muscle. "And you," Adrian said. 17 years old. Alone. With that cauldron. 17 and a half, Elara said. Why had she said that? She did not know. Perhaps that half-year mattered, a small resistance. Not 17, 17 and a half. There was a difference. Something passed across Adrian's face, that almost imperceptible thing. 17 and a half, he repeated. Flat. But within. The door opened. Not the servant this time, 2 men from the kitchen, carrying something heavy. Elara looked. And froze. A cast-iron cauldron. Large, black, heavy. Not the same one, this was from Sterling Manor, different from Voss's, but the same kind, same size, same weight, same dreadful cold presence. They set it down at the edge of the table and left. Elara stared at it for a long time. Inside her, that night returned, frozen hands, slipping water, that pain. But this time it was different. Because Adrian had placed it there. And everything Adrian did had a meaning. Why? Elara asked, her voice low but steady. You will see, Adrian said. Voss entered. Elara had not seen him since the wedding. Months. He had changed, more tired, more strained, that self-assured controlling composure cracked at the edges. But as he entered, he tried to gather himself, that familiar smile, calculated, false, meant for wealthy company. And then he saw Elara at the table. The smile froze for 1 second, only one, then resumed. Duke of Sterling. And, he looked at Elara. My daughter. What a surprise. Elara did not respond. Because Voss saying my daughter, 10 years ago it might have meant something. Now it was only a word. Empty. Used. Adrian did not rise. A small thing, a sharp thing, a duke would rise for a guest. Not rising was a message. Lord Voss, Adrian said. Sit. Voss sat, directly across from the cauldron. And when he did, he saw it. His eyes flickered toward it, quick, almost invisible, but Adrian saw. Elara saw as well. What? Voss began. Debt, Adrian said, calm and even. You came here for money. Did you not? Voss gathered himself. a temporary difficulty, my lord. As your father-in-law, state the amount. Voss did. Adrian's expression did not change. I will not give you this money, Adrian said. Voss's face shifted. My lord, this, but, Adrian said. Voss stopped. I will make you an offer. Adrian leaned slightly against the table, that cold, sharp, dangerous gaze. Do you see that cauldron? Voss glanced at it again. My lord, this, clean it. Silence, complete, heavy silence filling the room. Voss's face showed confusion, then a smile, thinking it a jest. My lord, if this is meant as humor, it is not, Adrian said. The smile vanished. You will clean that cauldron in this room, now. Then we will speak. Voss's color changed. This is unacceptable. I am a lord, yes, Adrian said. You are a lord. He paused. Elara was not. Yet you made her do it. The room froze. Voss's mouth opened. Closed. And in that moment, he understood. He knows. Everything. Until then, Elara had not spoken. She sat at the table, hands folded, the empty smile gone. Something else was there, calm, still, and within it, 10 years of everything. Voss turned to her. Elara, my daughter, you, do not speak to me, Elara said. Her voice came not loud, not trembling, simply clear. And that clarity forced Voss to look at her, truly look. For the first time, perhaps for the first time, he saw. There was no frightened child before him. There was a woman, tired, calm, finished with waiting. Adrian stood, walked to the door, and opened it. Two men entered, large, silent, resolute. Lord Voss, Adrian said. Your options are these. He counted on his fingers. 1. You clean that cauldron. Then we speak. 2. You refuse, in which case my lawyers act today, all Voss estate seized against your debts within the week. Voss's face flushed red. This is a threat. 3, Adrian said. Voss stopped. You leave. And London learns, a lord who made his stepdaughter work as a servant for 10 years, with burned scars, at 17, in winter, with frozen hands, carrying a boiling cauldron. A pause. You may decide which outcome causes you less difficulty. Voss was trembling, from anger, from shame, both perhaps. But more than anything, from helplessness. Because Adrian was right, in every way, and there was no escape. Voss stood. Walked to the cauldron. Stopped before it. That great, black, cold cauldron. Elara watched. And inside her, victory? No, not as she had imagined it. Something quieter. Heavier. 10 years. That kitchen. Frozen hands. That pain. And now Voss stood before it, not the same cauldron, but the same weight, the same cold. He bent. His hands touched it. And that touch shifted something in the room, unspoken, but felt. Elara's eyes filled. She held it, she had learned to hold it for years. But this time she did not have to. Adrian had said it, no one may give you orders in this house. She did not have to cry. But she did not have to hold it back either. And 2 tears fell, silently. Adrian saw. He did not look long, only briefly. But he saw. And within him, that cold, controlled man who calculated everything, felt something difficult to name. But it was this, it was right. This was right. Voss did not finish cleaning the cauldron. Halfway through, he collapsed to his knees, hands on the floor. "Enough," Adrian said. Voss looked up. "Stand." He did, hands dirty, face flushed, that lordly composure gone. Adrian walked to the table, took an envelope, and extended it. "My lawyers have already acted this morning. All Voss estates, the documents are inside. You will sign." Voss took it, hands shaking. In return, Adrian said, "London does not hear this story. It ends quietly." Voss opened the envelope, read, and signed. As he left, he paused at the door and turned to Alara. Perhaps he wished to say something, an apology, an explanation. He said nothing. Because Alara was not looking at him. She was looking out the window at London's grey sky. Voss left. The door closed. Silence. Long, full, carrying everything. Adrian stood by the table. Alara by the window. Alara. She turned and looked at him. Those eyes were full. She had not wept beyond those 2 tears, but they were full. And within them there was no emptiness. For the first time, that emptiness that had covered everything, frozen everything, had been replaced by something else, something difficult to name. But it was there. "Thank you," Alara said. Her voice did not tremble, but everything within it did. Adrian looked at her for a second. "I did not do this to place you in my debt." "I know," Alara said. "Then do not thank me." "Even so." Adrian walked to the window, that familiar motion, and looked outside. Alara watched him. This man, this cold, controlled man who had said not a statue, had placed that cauldron there, had summoned Voss, and when those 2 tears fell, he had looked. Only for a moment. But he had looked. Adrian. He turned. For the first time, Alara had used his name. Something passed across his face. "That night," Alara said. "The night of the cauldron. There was no one." Adrian waited. "And after it fell," she paused. "I stood up. Set it back. Filled it again. Prepared the evening meal." Adrian said nothing. "I do not know why I told you this," Alara said. "Only," she stopped. "I wanted someone to know." Adrian held that sentence, placed it somewhere within himself. "I know," he said. 2 words. But they carried weight. After Voss left, the manor did not change, not from the outside. The same walls, the same corridors, the same morning coffee, the same evening meals, the same library. But inside, something was different. Small. Quiet. But present. On the first day, Alara did not go to the library. She remained in her room through morning, noon, and afternoon. Adrian did not ask, did not send for her. Only at midday, a tray arrived, warm, complete, carefully prepared. No one had been told to do it. Adrian had given the order. Alara held the tray for a long time. And within her, that feeling returned, that fragile, dangerous, unnamed feeling. She was being seen. On the second day, she came downstairs and went straight to the garden. Stirling Manor's garden was expansive, its trees bare this season, but new green pushing up beneath them. Alara walked, without purpose, without direction. And this felt strange. Because she had always walked with purpose, to the kitchen, to the stables, to the hall, always toward something. To walk without purpose, when had she last done that? She stopped at the far corner of the garden, at an old plane tree, thick and wide, its roots deep in the earth. She looked at it, and reached out and touched the bark, rough, cold, solid. She did not pull away. She held it. "Did you like the garden?" She heard the voice and turned. Adrian. She did not know how long he had been there. He moved quietly. I do not know, Elara said. I never had time. Adrian came beside her and looked at the tree. This tree is 200 years old, he said. Elara looked at him. My father climbed it as a child. Did you? Adrian paused for a second. Once. I fell. Elara was surprised. To imagine the Duke of Stirling falling from a tree, she smiled. Not perfect, not measured, not placed. Real. Adrian saw it. And within him, that thing, that growing, uncontrollable, unnamed thing. He turned. The coffee is growing cold inside. He walked away. Elara watched him go. She looked once more at the tree, then followed him. Days passed. The library was nearly complete, every shelf in place, every book labeled, every section ordered according to Elara's system. One morning, Adrian entered and looked at the shelves, the order, the system. This, he said. Elara waited. This is good. 2 words. But within Elara, they carried weight. Thank you, she said. Then she stopped, and said something without preparation, without prompting, simply said it, I would like to add something to the eastern section. Adrian looked at her. What? Maps. The geography books are there, but the maps should be separate. Easier to find. Adrian examined the shelves. You are right, he said. Elara heard it. For the second time, you are right. And again that feeling came. She was being seen. Her thoughts were being seen. The maps were moved that day. Elara moved them herself. Adrian had offered to assist, and Elara had said, no, flat, calm, no explanation. No, I will do it. Adrian paused, then stepped back and returned to his desk. And Elara moved the maps, arranged them, adjusted them. When she finished, she stepped back and looked. It was her work. Her decision. Her arrangement. And that sense of mine opened something inside her. That evening at dinner, Elara spoke of her own accord. In the garden, there is a space in the eastern corner. Empty. No plants. The soil looks good. Yes, Adrian said. Something could be planted there. Adrian paused. What would you like planted? Elara stilled. He had not instructed, had not decided. He had asked. She looked down at the table, at her plate, at the window. I do not know, she said at last. I have never thought about it. Think. My lord? Think. There is time. That night in her room, Elara thought. What would she like planted? The question felt strange, simple on the surface, a garden, plants, soil. But for Elara, what do you want had never been simple. Because wanting was a luxury, and Elara had never had luxury. But now someone was asking. And she thought, truly thought, closed her eyes and searched for it. Lavender. Why lavender? She did not know. Perhaps from her mother's room had smelled of lavender, once, long ago. The next morning at breakfast, lavender, she said. In that corner. And perhaps rosemary beside it, the scent is strong, it remains in winter. Adrian nodded. I will inform the gardener today. Elara remained at the table. She had wanted something. She had spoken it. And it was becoming real. More days passed. And one day, Elara did something, a small thing, something no one would call significant. But for Elara, it was. It was afternoon. Adrian was in his study, the door half open as always. Ilara was passing through the corridor, stopped, looked at the door, and entered. Without asking. Without waiting. Without that hesitation at the threshold. She simply entered. Adrian looked up. Ilara came forward and sat. "I wish to ask something," she said. "Ask." "Vasa's estates. What will become of them?" Adrian set down his pen. "They will be sold. Debt settled. What remains will be yours. There is inheritance from your mother's side, the lawyers are reviewing it." Ilara stilled. "Mine? Yours. Why?" "Because those estates were originally your mother's family's. Vas acquired them." "Legally, no," Ilara said. Adrian stopped. "Why me?" "I have explained, you made this happen. You initiated this. You instructed the lawyers." She paused. "Why?" Adrian looked at her for a long time, and in that look, beneath that controlled, calculated composure, there was something he did not wish to say. But Ilara waited, and her waiting was no longer the same. It was not submission. It was wanting to see. "Because," Adrian said, "the scar on your shoulder," he stopped. He did not finish. He did not need to. Ilara understood. And that understanding warmed something inside her, unexpected, uninvited, but real. She stood and walked to the door. But at the threshold, she turned. "Adrian." He looked at her. "In the garden, those lavenders. I will plant them myself. Not the gardener." Adrian paused. "Very well. You may come as well. If you wish." And that "if you wish," that small, real, choice-giving phrase, did something within Adrian. Not something large. But something was there. Sterling Manor's garden changed in May. Winter had gone, that long, gray, heavy winter, and in its place came green, real, living, new. In the eastern corner, lavender was growing. Still small, newly planted, only months old, but it had emerged, pushed through the soil, thin and violet and persistent. And beside it, rosemary, strong and deep green, its scent carrying in the air. Ilara was crouched there, her hands in the soil, thin gloves on but still feeling the coolness, the dampness, the reality. She was adjusting a plant whose root was slightly misaligned, carefully, gently. "The left side holds better," said Adrian. He stood beside her. He came out each morning now, briefly, before the library. "I know," Ilara said. "The sun turns that way. What will you plant on the right?" She thought. "Sage. It prefers shade. Shall we inform the gardener?" "No." Adrian waited. "I will tend it." She stood and removed her glove. Looked at her hands. There was still soil, still small cracks, and that history. Her hands had softened in this house, in these months. But the marks remained. They would not vanish. Ilara looked at her hands for a long time, and this time she saw them differently. There was no shame. She did not wish to hide them. These hands had carried 10 years, worked 10 years, frozen and burned and worn. And they were still here. Still holding. Ilara. She looked up. Adrian stood close, not looking at her hands but at her face. "Are you well?" And that question, that simple, small question, did something inside her. Because no one had ever asked. For years, no one had asked. "Yes," she said. She paused. Actually, she stopped again. Adrian waited. He always waited. "I do not know," Ilara said. I do not fully know what well means. But, she looked at the garden, the lavender, the rosemary, that eastern corner. This feels like a place for the first time. A place for what? Elara thought. A place I would choose to stay. Something passed across Adrian's face, that rare, almost invisible thing. A smile. And Elara looked at him, and did something of her own will, without asking, without planning. She reached out. To his hand. Adrian stilled. 1 second, only one. Then he took it, held it lightly, not as if it would break, but carefully. And Elara did not pull away. They stood in the garden like that. Lavender small, still growing. Rosemary in the air. A distant bird. 2 people, standing, hands together. Adrian. Yes. That scar, Elara said. On my shoulder. Adrian waited. I am not ashamed of it anymore. Silence. It took a long time. But I am not ashamed. Adrian tightened his hand, very slightly, almost imperceptibly. But it was felt. Good, Adrian said. 1 word. But that 1 word, in that tone, with that hand, in that garden, was everything. Elara smiled. Not perfect, not measured, not placed. Real. That old, buried smile returned. And the scar on her shoulder, the mark of that winter night, those frozen hands, that empty kitchen, stood in the sunlight. Open. Unhidden. Unashamed. Simply there, as a mark of survival. Thank you for listening to the story all the way to the end. Please tell us which city you're watching from and what the story made you feel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories.